What is up, everybody? A lot of stuff going on with the hands. Today, we're gonna be making a video about laptops, and it's going to be the first part in a series called Will It Edit, where I take a series of different laptops from MacBooks to Razer laptops with different processors, and we're going to see how well they do at editing. So, let's just get into it. So, real quick, I know you guys hate this section of videos, but bear with me for like 45 seconds. I promise it'll be worth it. It's about cuts. I just took this off the drying rack. I hang my stuff up, and there's like no wrinkles on it, and it was just in the wash. I highly recommend Cuts Clothing, not because, you know, I'm partnered with them, because I've been buying their stuff before I even knew I could do that. I spent a considerable amount of money on a bunch of their clothing after just buying 2 shirts because I loved it so much. It makes you feel good, it fits nice, and they just came out with women's clothing. So now you can get shirts, and I'm sure they're gonna come out with a bunch of other stuff like shorts and bathing suits and all this cool stuff. It's just endless. For men's, you can get bathing suit bottoms, you can get shorts, joggers, coats, sweatshirts. Their sweatshirts are the only sweatshirts I wear. And fall is coming up, and they've got some new colors. They've got some awesome colors. You can get 15% off with my link in the description or using the code ADVENTURNER. I highly recommend it. You can return it if you don't like it. You know, give it a shot. I highly recommend their brand, and that's just not, you know, because I'm partnered with them, but because I love their brand. So check them out in the link in the description, and let's get to the video. Today, we're starting with the Mac. It's got the M1 Pro. We're gonna see how well it does. Obviously, this isn't the top of the line Mac processor that's out there right now. You've got the M1 Pro Max Ultra Super Ultimate processor, or however they scheme their names nowadays. But we're gonna test them out, starting with the Mac, then we'll move on to other computers and different videos, and then compare them all 3 in another video. I wanted to mention a few things about these tests before we go ahead and do them so that you kind of know what we're testing. I'm not gonna be running like benchmarks or anything that other, you know, creators that do computer stuff would do, because that's not this channel. So I'm gonna be just testing out how well these computers can edit in Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro, in my opinion, is one of the harder programs on your computer, whereas DaVinci Resolve and Final Cut Pro generally run pretty smoothly on computers, and Premiere Pro tends to just like eat at the parts of your computer to make it not run well. That's one reason why I'm using Premiere. The other one is that's my main editing software, and testing 2 or 3 different programs would just be really complicated. So if Premiere can handle it, DaVinci and Final Cut can also handle it. The way I'm going to be testing these computers is going to be just basic editing. So I'm not gonna go do anything crazy. I'm just gonna go through, import footage, see how well it plays back, add it to a timeline, add some effects, and render some stuff and export to see how well it can handle this footage. I'm gonna try a series of different I'm gonna try a series of different types of footage, including R5, you know, Sony, Red, all that other good stuff to see how well it handles that. The most intensive footage I probably have to test is 6K 60 raw footage from the R3, which I can already tell you some processors like the i9 can't really even touch that. It just kills it. So this computer right here is the MacBook Pro 14-inch with the M1 Pro chip. It has 16 gigabytes of memory, 512 gigs of storage, an SSD if you may, and the screen resolution is 3024 by 1964, which I don't even know if that's 4K because it's such a random resolution. It's maybe close to 4K. I don't know. I am going to be screen recording with OBS in 1080p, but that's going to stay consistent throughout all the computers so that it's fair. It adds a little bit of processing power to what I'm doing. Other than that, everything else is staying generally the same. Every computer, including this one, will be plugged into power and at close to or at 100% charge when starting, so that it uses the most power that it possibly can. All right, so first things first, we're gonna open Premiere and we'll see how long that takes, because why not? To do a screen recording. It's in 1080p though. We're gonna make a new project and we're gonna put this project in the exact same location as all of the files. Okay, so first things first, I'm gonna import footage, but you can also look through your media browser and do multiple different ways of going through your footage. I'm just gonna import it all just because it's probably going to be a little bit easier to do that just for testing purposes. And I've got a bunch of different kinds of footage to import. So what we're gonna do is start from, less intensive to more intensive footage. And one thing I will say is it did import very fast. It was pretty snappy. This isn't a ton of footage. It's about 150 gigabytes though, and it did just import that footage very quickly. That's not surprising though. It should import fairly quickly when you're going straight to the internal SSD on a laptop. And as you can see, I have different folders here, but we have Sony, Red, some H.265 drone footage and D-Log, some R3 6K60 footage, and these three folders up here are R5 422 10-bit H.265 footage. That's a mouthful. This is the footage I generally always use, and in my opinion, this is one of the harder footages or types of footage to edit on a normal computer without proxies. When it comes to the average consumer's, recorders. So like a DSLR mirrorless camera. I'm not talking about like using a full-fledged cinema camera, but I would imagine this R5 H.265 footage is a little bit harder on the computer than something like a Blackmagic 6K RAW, or even basic Red footage or Sony or DJI footage. So that's why that's kind of the harder footage. Now, the hardest footage I have, like I mentioned before, is the R3 6K60 RAW footage, which other computers, they just freeze. So we're not gonna get to that last just in case it does freeze. But first we can start out with Sony footage. As you can see, as soon as I click it, the thumbnails pop up immediately, which is good. Sometimes it takes longer depending on how many clips you have, which is fine. And what we're gonna do just for a little bit of testing is scrub through some of this footage at full resolution and play back to see how well it plays back and how well it can scrub. I have no doubts in my mind that most laptops in today's age should be able to edit this footage just fine with no issues. And these are just random clips I chose that have, different frame rates or different codecs and stuff like that. So, but the Sony footage, thumbs up. Next footage let's give a shot is this Red footage. Now I have both converted Red and R3D files. Let's start with the converted footage. This just fine. You can play back, scrub through, no issues. We can see that this is 4K footage, 24 frames per second, and this is quite a large file at 50 gigs almost. And it still can play back at full resolution. You can scrub through and it's like snappy. So let's go into the actual raw file here of the R3D, and you can see you can scrub through, same deal, hit play, hit pause, no issues here and there. Let's open another clip, no issues there. Scrolling through, yeah, everything looks good on this Red footage. So let's move on to the next. Let's do some drone footage, some H.265 D-Log drone footage, which sometimes my desktop, which has a lesser processor, a 10th gen X series, it is a beast of a computer with the 3090, but the processor I have just can't decode and encode this footage really. So the M1 Pro is mashing it though. We can play, pause, scrub, and it just buttery smooth scrubbing in full resolution. And this is 4K, 24 frames per second, D-Log H.265, and it is just a chugging through this footage. So we'll go through and we'll play some different footage clips. And this one is pretty fun. We were doing some snow angels in Iceland. But you can see it's scrubbing and dubbing, and it's pretty dang smooth. I'm not a Mac guy, but this may make me want to get a Mac, because that's pretty cool. All right, next, let's try 4K 24 R5 footage, H.265, 10-bit 422 color space. And just as a reference, normally most GPUs and CPUs can encode and decode H.265 420 footage, which I believe is 8-bit. But once you get that 422 color space, for some reason, it's just not supported. My 3090, for example, can handle 420 footage like it's nothing. But once you add that extra 2 in there, it's not great. But as you can see here, playing this footage back is, again, like butter. You can scrub through it, hit play, hit pause, and there's really no issues. But, you know, scrubbing through looks great. Next clip, 4K 60. Now this is just 4K 60 in 4K 60. So it's not automatically slowed down or anything. We will do that in the timeline here in a little bit. But as you can see, it plays back just fine. I can scrub through in full resolution and hit play. It has a little bit of a gap between hitting play and it actually playing compared to the other clips that we were looking at, but it still plays it back with no lag, no issues, no nothing. Looking pretty good. So let's move on to the second to last type of footage here, and this is 4K 120. So this footage is probably going to be the most intensive footage that isn't the R3 footage, and it's automatically put into 30 frames per second from 120, so it's already slowed down. And I can scrub through this and there's no lag or skipping, and it looks really good. So we'll go through and look at this clip here. Again, no problems, which I'm very impressed, which is not good because I don't want a Mac, but it works really well. So let's just keep scrubbing through here. And it looks good. Let's move on to the final clips, the R3 6K 60 footage, the beast of beast footage, the 6K 60 raw, and see how it handles it. Hopefully it doesn't crash the computer like it does on my other laptops. So first, the footage took a minute to load the thumbnails, but that was way better than some other computers I have seen so far. You can kind of scrub through, which is a really good sign so far. These two clips here are not in RAW, so we're not gonna touch those. But first we'll go to this one and we'll scrub. There's a little bit of lag. We're in full resolution of 6K 60 RAW. I'm not surprised that this can't handle it at all. Like this, no surprises at all for me. I would imagine not a lot can handle this out of the box because it's pretty intense footage. So I'm gonna go to half resolution to see if that makes a difference. And it helps a little bit, but I think we might need to go all the way down to a fourth, which is a little over 1080, maybe 1440p-ish. And it's still on the struggle bus at 1/4. Let's try 1/8, which is a little under 1080p. Yeah. So it handles most of footage that you'll be using on a daily basis just fine. But the real test is going to be actually editing some of this footage. So I'm gonna keep the recording going. I'm gonna do a random edit. I'm just gonna throw some clips of different types into the timeline, edit them, and see how it runs after the fact. We'll render the timeline, add some effects, and we'll see how well this can handle all of that. And that'll be the real test. This test was to just show how well you could even, assemble a video without needing proxies, which so far it looks like it would handle it just fine. The very last test we'll do is we'll take an external hard drive and try to edit a wedding with no proxies, because that's going to have over 200 clips to load and edit at one time. So first, bear with me. We're gonna do a little bit of an edit and we'll come back after. Okay, so first things first, I did a quick edit, about a 3-minute video. It's just random clips I was cutting back and forth to see how well it handles cutting clips of different kinds and adding them together, and it did great. I didn't have any lag or skipping or any issues really at all. And this is even unrendered. So it's about a 3-minute video. We can go ahead and see how long it takes to render this whole thing. Then we'll add some effects to it, maybe some motion graphics and some other random stuff to see how well it handles that. And in the meantime, we'll just, see how long this part takes. It's about a 3-minute, 2-second video, so I'll try to keep that consistent throughout all of the videos. But we'll see how long this takes. All right, I don't know exactly how long that took, but you'll see something down here like a timer that tells you how long that took. So let's add some effects. Let's add a keyframe to this. So we'll start with a scale position. We'll go all the way over here. We'll zoom in and we'll move it this way. For this clip, we'll just scale it to 110. This clip will do some rotation, keyframes. I know it looks stupid, but that's what we're going to be doing. And then what we'll do here is add some random graphics from Premiere. How about this guy here? It's a little bit of a caption. Maybe this we'll add to. Subscribe. I'm also gonna add a motion graphic from my personal collection because those tend to be a little bit harsher. All right, so this is a Peter McKinnon motion graphic here. We're gonna add that, and keep in mind all of these files are in the same folder on the computer in the folder for the project. So everything's in the same spot. No hard drives are being used yet. So see how this one is red, this one's yellow. That's why I wanted to use one of my own motion graphics because they are a little bit more intensive on the render scale. So we're not going to render it yet, and we're gonna see how well it all plays back with the effects. So far, it looks like I can scrub through this footage with the keyframe just fine, and there's no issues. Also, scrubbing through this other one that had a zoom in. This one had a rotation, which it's there, and it seems to be scrubbing just fine. Then we'll go through and we'll play some of these built-in motion graphics. And then we'll play this other motion graphic, which plays just fine, no issues. And even another motion graphics on top of it. I did that on purpose. That's great. My computer currently, it struggles to play a motion graphics and the computer at the same time, and the clip. So like right here is where generally, okay, you're seeing it a little bit. After coming back and playing it again, it does get a little bit laggy, but then it looks like it clears itself up. So yeah. Okay, so as you can see, it generally edits pretty well when all of the clips and everything are on the computer. So the next thing I'm going to do is plug in an external solid state drive. This is the V1 of the SanDisk, not the V2. So it does have a speed cap, but these are the types of drives that most people are going to be editing their projects on. So it's kind of hard to use the internal computer components to put everything on as the test, because I'm not going to be putting a 700 gig project, because that's how much my weddings are, on my 1 terabyte drive. It would fill up in one project and that would be obnoxious. So I'm going to be editing off an external drive. So we're going to try to edit a wedding with no proxies off this external drive and see how well that works. All right, so my hard drive did not have the song, so I'm gonna keep it muted anyway. But this is a wedding, which I do have proxies for it, but they're not turned on. So this is just generally going to be how fast it can load things off of the hard drive and generate those thumbnails, which it seems to be doing a really fast job at generating these thumbnails even off of an external drive. So that's super impressive. Generally that takes a really long time. So that's super cool. We can go through, see the clips. Some of them are still getting there, but they load very fast. And you can even scrub through with no issues. And these are all a mixture of 24, 120, 60 frames per second clips, which are put into a timeline here that you can kind of see, you know, I'm playing back just fine, no issues. You can scrub through the footage. There's really no issues with the footage here. I know I generally have a lot of different types of frame rates here. So even on an external hard drive, the M1 Pro does a really good job. So my final thoughts. I think the M1 Pro, especially this version here, the 14-inch, that only costs $2,000, does an immaculate job at editing with no proxies of all different types of footage. Even editing off of an external solid state drive that has a bottleneck from speed, reading and writing, does a really good job. Now I will say take this information with a grain of salt because I haven't been using this for hours. It may get a little bit slower and more sluggish the more you add to it. Now I will say if you are doing a lot of editing that involves a lot of transitions, effects, motion graphics and such, you're gonna probably have to render everything after you add an effect or transition because it probably won't play through very well. But if you're just straight up editing a wedding video and you don't add a ton of transitions, effects, or motion graphics, you should be totally fine without proxies editing on this computer. Now, even my $5,000 desktop needs proxies with an 18-core 36-thread CPU and an RTX 3090 because it doesn't do well with this type of codec. If I edit Sony footage, it's like butter. But if you have a little bit more intensive footage like an R5, R6, or H.265 footage from any other camera, I know Sony still has some in their cameras on their higher end, it should handle it just fine. There are a lot of other older computers with 11th gen or older Intel that just can't do that. So from a standpoint of the price of this computer only being $2,000 and a comparable Windows laptop being, you know, $2,600 to $3,500, I would say it's a great bang for the buck, especially for the performance, and the efficiency of the battery on this thing is crazy good. This computer is not used by me, but by somebody else, but they do photo editing, and they were able to edit photos on a flight for a few hours, and the battery went down by like 10%. Whereas if I edit photos on my laptop, my Windows laptop, for an hour, I lose like 70%, even at a balanced battery mode. So for the price, performance, and efficiency, the M1 Mac gets a straight up thumbs up. I highly recommend it if you are an Apple user, if you're an Apple fan, and you always use Apple, this is a no-brainer. Get this computer, or better, you can even get a better M1 chip. I think the M1 Pro Max or something like that, or Ultra, or whatever the heck they call it. But for the price, it's great. I recommend it, and I'm not an Apple user. I used to be, I switched over, but that's really my end result. It's a win-win-win-win situation with the Mac. Let me know what kind of comparisons or things you want to see I can test out with this MacBook M1 Pro, and I can make more videos. So let me know in the comment section down below what you want to see. I'm more than happy to make those and test this bad boy out, because I might buy one myself. No, I can't. Nah, that's a hard one. That's a hard one. It's a great computer. It's kind of upsetting. We'll compare this computer with two other computers with different processors from Intel and Ryzen, and we'll see how they perform comparatively. But that's really it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out Cuts, because their clothing is just great. I mean, I don't even care if you use my code. Just go to their website. I mean, please use my code, but you don't have to. Just get their clothes, try them on. And it's one of those things that you try on, you're like, oh God, why'd you show me this brand? So wrap it up. See you on the next one. Have a good day. Do what you gotta do. Enjoy your life.